Hello and welcome. You're watching India Upfront. I'm Padmaja Joshi, and today is the day when everyone across the country asks only one thing: am I going to be saving any money? What does this government have for me in this budget? Remember, this was Modi government 2.0's full budget. The Prime Minister called it a budget that would herald Samriddhi and Samarthya. But there's a huge grouse of the middle class which feels that they have been shortchanged. They gave this government a brute majority. Is bar 300 par, but what did they get in return? Key demands of the common man as well as industry bodies, many say, have been ignored, be it raising the tax exemption threshold or revising the tax slabs or increasing the maximum deduction limit. All of them, nothing done about it. Instead, the higher income groups are staring at a higher tax outgo. The opposition naturally has called this a fraud on the middle class.
इस बजट में आम नागरिक के लिए ईज ऑफ लिविंग भी है और साथ ही गांव और गरीब का कल्याण भी है। ये बजट देश को विश्वास दे रहा है कि दिशा सही है, प्रोसेस ठीक है, गति सही है और इसलिए लक्ष्य पर पहुंचना भी निश्चित है।
This is a budget that addresses concerns of several sectors, every section of society, the poor, the middle class, the lower middle class. I think this is a budget that lays a solid foundation for a very empowered and strong future for India.
This government is still selling dreams, but they are not realizing any of the dreams of the common people of India who are having nightmares.
All right, before we go across to our panel to talk about whether this is a Robin Hood budget, let me get started with Union Minister Prakash Javadekar. Thank you very much, Javadekar ji, for speaking to us. So what is this budget? क्या ये आम आदमी का बजट है? क्या ये मिडिल क्लास का बजट है? क्या ये गांव का बजट है? शहर का बजट है? कैसे समझे इस बजट को? आधे लोग तो कह रहे हैं समझ में ही नहीं आ रहा कि इस बजट में है क्या?
ये सबका बजट है, इंडिया का बजट है, न्यू इंडिया का बजट है, क्योंकि इसमें सभी वर्गों का भी ख्याल है, लेकिन पारंपरिक तरीके से हर एक को कुछ न कुछ एक कैरेट दिखाना ये बात नहीं है। देश का विकास कैसे होगा इसका ये नक्शा है और इसमें हमने सबसे बड़ी बात की है कि ये we have really envisioned how we will achieve our target of becoming $5 trillion economy.
Which, sounds amazing, Mr. Javadekar, but here's the thing. When it really comes down to the numbers, everyone is wondering that you could not explain how this 5 trillion economy is going to come about. Now we've been told that possibly 3 trillion economy is going to be achieved in this year itself. Is this also just a jumla? How will you achieve all of this with single digit growth? Where's the explanation? Where's the data for this?
No, we are the fastest growing economy of the world today. When world is progressing at 3%, we are progressing even this year, which was not a very good year, still 6.8%. Next year we'll achieve more than 7%, and then next year onward we'll achieve 8%. This is not impossible. See, we were 11th large economy of the world in 2014. In 5 years, we have become 6th world's largest economy. That has happened because for first 65 years, we could improve up to only $2 billion economy. Now, in 5 years, we have added $1 billion, and now we will add more $2 billion in next 5 years. It's not an impossible thing.
Actually, as I&B Minister, just to go off on a tangent for just a little bit, I've had many colleagues talking about how newsprint has been taxed. The import of books has been taxed. As I&B Minister, how do you look at this? This is going to be a huge impact on the newspaper industry.
No, see, taxation is a regular part because there are various counter demands from various sections, and let us understand that I have already listened to newsprint issue and we always find out solutions to that. So I don't pessimist about that something will break down. No.
Okay, so you're not pessimist, but people are not very happy nonetheless about how the newspaper industry is going to be reeling under higher costs now. But speaking of, for example, you said this is Sabka budget, this is New India ka budget, but New India also includes the middle class, which is going to ask the government, crude is getting cheaper, but you are charging us 2.5 rupees more per litre of petrol and diesel. How is this fair? The same middle class votes for you, and then they get this in the budget. Why?
I'll tell you. Last 3 months, we have a price linked to international market. Last 3 months, we are already down by 3 rupees. So, you want cleaner petrol, no pollution, no vehicular pollution. That requires 60,000 crore rupees of investment to create BS6 grade of fuel. And we are giving from 1st April. We have already started giving it in Delhi. So, it requires money. You want best roads, rail, air connectivity and port and waterways, then it has an investment. And when you want to grow exponentially and facilitate, this is a direct user charge, as you can say. And therefore, I don't think everybody has to accept. And what middle class wants? Middle class wants peace and prosperity.
Okay.
So, they wanted inflation, not really inflationary. In UPS Manmohan Singh's regime, there used to be 10 to 12% increase in prices every year. Now it is only 2 to 3%. Who saves?
Okay.
In India, data is world's cheapest data, and we are all using. Who is using more? It's middle class. If there are no bomb explosions in cities, which was phenomena in UPA regime, who benefits? Middle classes and ease of living. If it has brought about in November, crores of people go to bank branches to prove that they are alive. But now from home comfort, you can do it. So all things have changed.
But
and
Mr.
digital
Javadekar,
payment has opened a new gateway. Now you are ordering digitally from your home comfort of any hotel food and everything, Uber and Ola, all these are new things which have come and which we have made it enabled.
But Mr. Javadekar, all of these, this is very commendable, but all of this is going to benefit everyone. I was asking you specifically about where the middle class stands to benefit. If there is better infrastructure, everyone is going to use it. If there is cheap data, well, everyone is going to avail of that as well. But this seems more like a Robin Hood budget where, you know, one section is going to be milked, as it were. They are going to pay so that your socialist schemes can take off and that you have money for it.
No. Actually, it is the other way around. It is the middle class which is using data. Who is using? Everything is using by 80 crore, 70, 40, 50 crore new middle class. And that is what people are using and they are happy. And so let us not think comprehensively. And if we want to give ghar ghar mein jal, it's a most difficult task. It's not that easy.
Thank you.
Nobody has attempted in 70 years. So we have to deliver it in next 5 years and we will deliver it as we have delivered Pradhan Mantri Awas, as we have delivered gas chulas, as we have delivered electricity connections, as we have delivered toilets, as we have delivered mudra loans, as we have delivered Jan Dhan accounts. All things together we have actually delivered in first 5 years. So this is all definitely we are doing it.
Okay, or as you call it, these are the end user charges. Final question I want to ask you, because I know you're in a hurry, Mr. Javadekar. Is there also a sense of this government knowing that you have a weak opposition, that people don't really have an option? So you can sort of, go with the hard measures, and other than protesting, people can't really do anything.
No. I said no, that we have given relief from ever rising prices for last 5 years. So will you not calculate what benefits Modi government has given? Will you only say, and last full year I have studied, total rise in price of petrol and diesel was 5 rupees and total prices which came down was 7 rupees. Even last 3 months I am telling you that we have reduced by 2 rupees. So why people will not be ready? They will be.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Javadekar, for speaking to us here on India Upfront. Let me introduce our panel. We have National Vice President of the BJP, Panda, here with us, Senior Leader of the Trinamool Congress, Chandan Mitra, JDS spokesperson Tanveer Ahmed, and political analyst Garga Chatterjee here with me in the studio. Chandan Mitra, you agree with Mr. Javadekar that these are end-user charges, so the middle class or people as a whole should not be groaning or complaining?
Whatever spin Mr. Javadekar has tried very hard to put on the budget, and that's expected. He's a government spokesman, so he will try to put a spin. But I must say at the outset that this is not just an insipid budget, it is a budget without a soul. It does not have people at its center. The one thing missing in the budget is people. I mean, people's concerns, their expectations have all been denied, and the government has steamrolled over people, particularly the middle class, and issued a farman, said this has to be done, these taxes have to be paid, you have to pay more for petrol, diesel and various other commodities, and you take it or leave it, and people can't leave it. They live in this country, so they have to pay. I
Panda.
think this is a very bad budget, if you ask me, something which should have been avoided.
What happened to the people? The people's government left people out of their budget.
Look, that's totally wrong, of course. The reality is, this is the most ambitious budget I think India has ever seen, with the commitment to 100 lakh crores of infrastructure development over the next 5 years to put India on the trajectory to a $5 trillion economy. And the $5 trillion mark is important because it is generally seen as the entry point of a nation that approaches developed status. That's very, very crucial. And this is not just pie in the sky, because this comes on the back of solid credentials over the past 5 years. And I want to give you a couple of examples. Today, India has 1,32,000 kilometers of highways, and fully 20% of that was built only in the last 4 years. That means of every 5 kilometers of highways that we have, 1 kilometer was built only in the last 4 years. So the government clearly has demonstrated its credibility and credentials in going for this big infrastructure development. And 100 lakh crores is going to have immense benefits to the economy besides the size growth, by way of creating jobs, by way of creating employment, by way of attracting investment. One other thing I'd like to point out, by way of credentials, is the finance minister pointed out that 18,000 crores of rupees savings per year, not just once, but every year, because of the large number of LED bulbs that have been handed out. Now, these are the kind of steps that are going to transform India's economy.
And
20 million more houses to be built.
Transform the country, the money's got to come from somewhere. So the super rich will be taxed extra, and the middle class will feel a little pinch. The money can't just come out of thin air. How do you respond to that argument, Chandan Mitra?
Oh, acha. Well, you know, the super rich, people earning more than 2 crore per year, being taxed a little more, frankly speaking, I don't have a problem with that. People who are earning that much money ought to pay a slightly larger burden for the government's plans to work. But, I mean, the bulk of the people have not only been left out, but they have been taxed extra through indirect means. So because of that, the problem today is that growth is not happening because demand, consumption is at an all-time low. And because it's at an all-time
Panda
low,
vehemently
there's no
disagrees with
investment.
you.
Who will invest in an economy that is not growing?
His argument is growth will happen.
Sure he will. We are
When
colleagues.
your taxes will be used for infrastructure,
No,
when
growth will
everyone
happen.
will
You
have a
heard this
house, when
many times
everyone will have
that-
water, that's when growth will happen. Panda.
Yeah, that we have been
Yes,
hearing
see,
for a long
the
time.
reality
but
is
where
this.
is it? And it won't happen overnight. And in the meantime, Meantime, the economy is suffering and suffering further.
Jai Panda.
No, the reality is this: the global economy has seen a slowdown in the last couple of years, and India is not immune to what happens in the rest of the world. So yes, indeed, India's GDP growth rate has seen a dip in the last 1 year. But remember, India still remains the fastest growing economy. And with this massive thrust given to infrastructure, it is going to remain the fastest growing economy in the coming 5 years at least. Now, this is, again, I'll reiterate that this is not pie in the sky. This is based on things already done. Now, take for example, NPAs, the bank problem. This is something that was inherited. It came from over 15 years ago with bad loans given. Now, for the first time last year, we saw a reduction of NPAs by 1 lakh crores because of the steps taken, and 4 lakh crores recovery because of the bankruptcy code that this government put in. So when Chandan Mitra talks about things getting more expensive and not growing, I want to point out that GST, which admittedly had a lot of teething problems, now many of them have been resolved and some others will be resolved in the coming weeks and months, is the single biggest reform in India's 70 odd years since independence. And this actually reduces costs because it takes away the cascading of taxes which was there for all these years before. And GST in fact has been now kicking in. If you look at the last 4 months, in the 3 out of the last 4 months, the GST consistently gave more than 1 lakh crores revenue per month, which is a huge surge. So to say that things are getting more expensive, let me conclude by saying this. If you remember, in the recent election,
alarmist in calling this a flop budget and anti-middle class budget.
Please do one last point there.
Go on.
Okay. So both Prakash Javadekar and Mr. Jai Panda actually repeated apparent point of fact which is not true, that India is the fastest growing economy in the world. In fact, if he were to look very near, in Bangladesh it is growing at a faster rate. Not only that, there are Indian investors who are putting their money in Bangladesh. So apart from the usual Bangladesh bashing that goes on,
So you're saying this is spin doctrine?
I mean, there are facts. I mean, you look at the World Bank data. I mean, you know, not everything comes out of
fastest growing large economy is what I meant.
I mean, large economy. I mean, come on. So now you have all the rejoinders. Anyways, so we have Indian kind of investors going to Mozambique, going to Ethiopia. We have SEZs which are already here, which have good labor reform, you know, easy passage of everything. People who have gotten SEZs are giving back SEZ licenses, saying that we don't need it. Okay? So people, as you said, people are not saving any money in this one. People are not. So where's the talk?
This is a status quo budget.
Where's the talk about making any money? Where's the talk about getting any jobs? Okay. The only thing which I can see with PM this Yojana, PM this Yojana, I think there's a huge boom for the flex board industry which is coming up. You know. So otherwise, I don't see a growth.
So let's not be facetious about it. If there is a scheme that is being rolled out, there will be beneficiaries of
the scheme. Because in Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, we saw 57% of the money going into advertisement. So there is a fact here.
And you are saying that there was absolutely no change in mindset that happened after that. So let's not go back into the past with Beti Bachao,
It's not a mindset question. We need real money, real investment, a pathway to jobs.
Jai Panda.
Look, I really have no answer for congenital pessimists. The reality is, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which was launched in Haryana, saw in Haryana a quite significant turnaround in the gender ratio within these short few years. So let's not make fun of socially transformational programs. Now, Indian investors going outside, I don't know why it's necessarily a bad thing. It signifies Indian industry growing, Indian investors growing in scale, so that they do have the ability to go outside. What we should be concerned about is, are we getting investments or not? Now, please note something very crucial that the finance minister pointed out. Global FDI dipped in the last year, yet India's grew 6%. And at 64 billion FDI coming in, India remains one of the brightest spots in the world for attracting investment. Yes, of course, we need to do more. We need to do much more to get investment going. But to ignore these facts I don't think is fair.
A congenital pessimism, looking for a dark cloud in every silver lining, Tanveer Ahmed, including the budget. At worst, is this a status quoist budget, or is this actually detrimental
there
to
were
the Aam Aadmi?
absolutely three good points in this budget. One, it was presented. No, there are three good things in this budget. One, it was presented by Nirmala Sitharaman, a woman. And second thing, they changed the name of the box to Bahi Khata. And third important part was, a lot of table banging was happening. But other than that, were there any serious plannings? I think there was absolutely no serious plannings in this budget at all. Why? Because it is not the Robin Hood budget. Robin Hood budget is also still accepted. It is Robin Hood budget. The defense is being absolutely totally ignored.
Who's being robbed?
And Padmaja, can you really imagine?
Tanveer Ahmed, can you be specific? Who's being robbed here?
Who's been robbed? The common man is being robbed.
How?
The common man is being robbed. The common man who was having huge expectation that there is going to be something in his joli. There is going to be tax reduction in his joli.
Sir, the counter to that, can be
sector.
That
household
we get
appliances
fixated
is
on
going to
things
get cheaper.
like tax exemption, tax rebates. How is it that you won't concentrate instead on the infrastructure?
The books have become 10% more
if
expensive.
I want
Do you know that?
roads to be made,
Padmaja, 10%
I will
books
have
have
to
gone
pay for
expensive, Padmaja.
Tanveer Ahmed.
Padmaja, books have become 10% more expensive.
Imported
Who's
books.
going to answer about that part?
Imported
Now,
books.
Padmaja, the petrol, diesel, cess, everything. Imported books, so what? Knowledge. We are talking about knowledge, whether it is imported or exported books. Knowledge is going to be taxed for the first time in the history. This is happening, Padmaja.
Okay, petrol and diesel, Panda, that is something that the government cannot step away from.
This budget is great in sloganeering.
Why is it that the rest of the world is actually selling fuel cheaper? We get to make it even more expensive.
Well, the fact is that petrol prices are a sensitive issue, so we must recognize something. Over the past several years, and not just in the NDA government, but from earlier times also, attempts have been made so that petrol doesn't become just an administrative decision. It has linkages to the market. I wish you would have a program every time that the petrol and diesel price was reduced. But something tells me you have those programs less often and more discussion when they go up. The fact is, petroleum prices have been going up and down. We need to look at the bigger picture as to whether Indians are able to afford it or not. Inflation management has been one of the best aspects of this government over the past 5 years. If you look at the inflation result over the past 5 years, not just that, in the recent elections, it was probably the first election in living memory where inflation was not a factor. It was not a campaign issue even by the opposition. What does that indicate to you? Let us not take specific items out of context. Let's look at the overall scenario. I think inflation has been well managed, and the reason for that is the government's focus on the fiscal deficit, which is not easy to do, but you see the track record over the last 5 years. By controlling the fiscal deficit, inflation has been controlled.
So, I'm sorry, I need certain correction here.
Tanveer Ahmed.
Sir, certain correction. Your favorite agency Moody also said that you are going to miss the fiscal deficit challenge. That this is also a wrong data which you are presenting. It has been absolutely challenged and accepted by the government. And the second thing, Padmaja, as we know that 21 cities, major cities, are going to be out of water. There was absolutely no planning. Nal se jal. अरे जल कहाँ से लाएंगे? What is the planning? What is the infrastructure you're going to set? What is the amount of money which has been allocated for that? There is rhetorics. We can really say that we are going to become 5 trillion or 15
okay, this is something that even the Congress has pointed out, Jay Panda.
Totally
high on rhetoric, less on specifics.
No, the Congress has been pointing out that they wanted to see more of the accounting details, and the accounting details are there in the annexures. Now, budgets over the past several years have been getting, the presentation of it has been more about the big ideas and the roadmap, but all the details are there. Let's take allocations. Now, I talked earlier about the tackling of the bank's NPA problem. So there is a specific allocation of 70,000 crores to further refinance the PSU banks. Again, let me reiterate, this is an inherited problem from earlier. Now, I don't know why there should be skepticism when the government says that piped drinking water will be provided to each household that wants it within the next few years, because the track record is, if you look at the households and toilets which have been built in the last 5 years, it is stunning by any measure. And I've already mentioned to you about highways. I've already mentioned to you about many other aspects where the government has demonstrated its credibility. So when a government demonstrates its credibility, it lays out the roadmap and the vision. It gives the details in the annexures, which I'm sorry, some of my friends don't bother reading. And then to question how
the difference here,
government will
Garga
achieve
Chatterjee,
it, I
is
don't
that
think right.
there is a people's
I
confidence
mean-
backing up this government. They think whatever money is being taken for them will ultimately come back to them by way of progress, by way of infrastructure, by way of schemes, where there will be no leakages. Garga Chatterjee.
Unfortunately, confidence, belief, trust, etc. do not run the economy. It is real policies on the ground that run it. So, for example, there's a lot of talk on infrastructure. I love it. Okay. Having said that, let's look at what NHI has been doing for the last few years, for example, right? So, for example, states pay money. We know that the states are engines of growth everywhere. So, are there are the good growth states being promoted? Is more money getting devolved to states? The answer is no. The answer is no. If you, now 42% has been stuck at 42%, make it 50%, make it 60%, that's where the growth is. West Bengal, for example, has 8% of the population, it got 2% of the NHAI. Why? We are paying, we are not getting it back, and that's true for many other states.
Can you quickly,
one very brief point. Okay, if we are to have real growth, then we have to cut red tape. Joy Panda comes from Orissa. People ask why Kalahandi is so poor, etc. Because Orissa does not own its mines. Let's give the mines to the states. Deutsche Pochomi in Bengal, one of the world's largest mines, it's been stuck in approval level for last 1 year. We have not been starting to even get the coal.
Let him quickly respond to this, because then I have to go across to Sanjeev Sanyal. Quick answer to that, please, Jay Panda.
Yeah, I also need to...
Well, I think it's totally not connected to reality. I think he's talking about Kalahandi from the 1980s. There's quite a different situation there.
Right.
And let me tell you, the union government does not discriminate in projects such as infrastructure. And particularly, thrust has been given to Eastern India. There are many states which are run by governments which are not BJP. And yet you will see tremendous amounts of investment happening. Now, in certain states, the law and order may be an issue. In certain states, the state government may not be as focused on governance or as focused on infrastructure, maybe more focused on other issues. And maybe that's why they are not able to avail of this. But the union government certainly...
We are talking at the allocation level, Jay Panda, not at the execution level. In the allocations are also discriminatory.
Okay, I would request gentlemen to please stay with me for a few minutes, because I also want to bring into the debate...
On the state governments making proposals based on projects.
Mr. Mitra, I'll come to you in just a minute, because I also want to bring in at this point Principal Economic Advisor in the Finance Ministry, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal is here with us. Sanjeev Sanyal, the one-liner that was thrown at the government today was that this budget was supposed to lead India, but it is a mislead India budget. Not up to expectations, status quoist at best. How do you respond?
Let me say that I am not interested in responding to some political rhetoric. If you have a serious question on technical issues, about economic issues, I am happy to respond to this. But these kind of political rhetoric, I have absolutely no interest in engaging with.
Okay, so you're saying this is more perfunctory political rhetoric. I want to ask you about the jobs. What exactly is in this budget for jobs? What is the plan? What is the roadmap?
First of all, there is this number bandied about that there's unemployment is at some 45-year highs and so on. This is utter rubbish. We don't have data for that period to even be able to make this claim. Anyway, creation of jobs is a serious issue, and we should take it seriously, particularly given our demographic phase, where we obviously have a very large proportion of our population of working age expanding. So it is a serious issue, and this is an issue actually we dealt with quite extensively in yesterday's economic survey, where we made the case that if you want jobs, you've got to dramatically increase the investment rate. So we have a target, as you know, of a $5 trillion economy by 2025, which is equivalent to 375 lakh crore rupees. And it requires the economy to be going in real terms at 8%. Now, we did an analysis of the economies that are able to sustain these kinds of growth rates, and it's very, very clear that especially the East Asian experience suggests that you need at least a 35% of GDP investment rate. Not a trivial effort. And so in that context, this is where you have to begin to look at what are the things that was discussed in the budget. So you saw, for example, a clear signal being sent, for example, on this angel tax issue, which had become a bit of an issue at the end of last year. Clearly, Finance Ministry has allayed many of these issues, and if there are other further issues, we will allay them as well. There was a fair amount of emphasis, as Mr. Panda was just pointing out, on building infrastructure. We are systematically lowering the corporate tax rate, so you've seen the limit being raised to 400 crores, and over time we will raise it further and further, so that the effective tax rate for our corporates begins to come down to becoming much more internationally competitive. I mean, there's a whole host of things that we can lay out about how investment is being systematically increased. Of course, there are other things that still remain to be done. And as in the economic survey, we argued, we need to lower the cost of capital significantly from where they are now, given that we have anchored inflation so well over the last several years.
Is there the honest taxpayer, because the main few themes that are being spoken about today among people is that if you're an honest taxpayer, A, you have got no benefit, B, you've almost been penalized. Why is that?
I think it's being unfair. Remember, we had presented just a few months ago an interim budget where some changes were made. You can't expect 6 months later for us to make further changes. We have, of course, increased the tax rates at the very high slabs. A very tiny number of people are affected by this. And we had to do it because we had to, of course, raise revenues for doing many of the things I just discussed. The fact is that we do want to make sure that the tax machinery does not impose itself on the taxpayer. And a big effort is being paid, which the finance minister laid out, of simply using technology to remove as far as possible all human interaction with the tax authorities, so that many of the misuses and other things that people are very often afraid of get simply taken out of the equation. So some thought is being given to this, and step by step they do get implemented. So it's not like whether it is in terms of lowering corporate tax rates or in terms of slowly changing things on the direct tax rate on the personal level, which, as I mentioned, as recently as in the interim budget a few months ago, we did make for the middle class some changes, and I'm sure in the future we will do so and simplify things further as well. Okay,
finally I want to ask you, we spoke about the 5 trillion figure earlier. Today we've been told about the 3 trillion figure this year itself. How is that going to be possible, and how will we achieve a growth of about 14% or more, because that's the only way you can reach a 3 trillion figure?
Well, we are very close to the 3 trillion figure. We were at 2.7 a little over 2.7 already in the last financial year. So we'll cost 3, and we need, if you want to reach that $5 trillion economy, just so that you have the numbers and you know what we are talking about, we basically need to grow this economy at about nominal terms in 12% every year in rupees. Okay, now that will get us to about 375 lakh crores. We have assumed, underlying all of that, an exchange rate at the end point of 75 rupees to the dollar. And remember, our inflation rate is fixed because it's at 4%. That's fixed by law. That's the target given to the Monetary Policy Committee. And so it's not too difficult to work out. It implies an 8% in real terms growth rate, which is, it's ambitious, but it's not undoable. We have sustained for short periods of time growth rates in that range, and we tend to, even in not so good years, manage something in the 7% range. So yes, it's ambitious, but it is something that is certainly realistic.
Okay, it's never a crime to be ambitious. Thank you very much, Sanjeev Sanyal, for speaking to us here on India Upfront. Appreciate it. Also joining us now, we have with us in the studio economist Surjit Bhalla, senior economist Swaminathan Iyer, and author Chetan Bhagat already joining our panel now. Chetan Bhagat, do you think the middle class doth protest too much?
No, they don't. Middle class pays its taxes and all on time, and I think they often get ignored because politically often there is other people to please, which may make more political sense. Having said that, the middle class was given some concessions just a few months ago. So you can't expect that every time. It's a budget. It's not Santa Claus visiting you. Okay. It's the budget, right? And I think, but I agree that like in the budget of, I think the budget, 2 budgets before that, there was nothing done for the middle class, and that actually was going against the BJP. So they quickly came in, and today, like, you make 5 lakhs a year, you don't pay any income tax. I mean, that's a pretty good concession, I think. So
Chandan Mitra, it's the budget, not Santa Claus.
Yeah, true. Budgets are not meant to be Santa Claus, but they must give relief to common people because the government controls everything. We were told there was something called an automatic pricing mechanism for petrol and diesel. What happened to it? Every few weeks, petrol price goes up and down, up more, down less, and then in a budget, in reminiscent of Indira Gandhi's times, in the budget, you increase the price of petrol and diesel. You build roads and claim huge credit that we are building so many lakh kilometers of roads, but ultimately you charge toll on them. So ultimately it is the people who are paying to build those roads. So you are taking people's money, building roads, and then increasing the fuel prices, so that traveling on them, even by bus and or lorry and minibus and so on, everything becomes more expensive. So where is
Surjit Bhalla is smiling at your suggestion that this is like the times of Indira Gandhi.
Any kind of
not just smiling, but
yeah, it is
a little bit
more.
It's quite funny, actually.
Every budget, petrol and diesel prices used to go up.
The fact
and stay steady for 1 year till it was increased again. But so now, it's a matter of weeks. Every few weeks it goes up.
Surjit
So I think the whole policy is flawed, and the government needs to take a hard look at the whole business.
Surjit Bhalla.
Yeah, let's be realistic. I mean, the political and election season is over, and won't be there. I guess for individual states it will be there, but really, let's just get real. And if you get real, this is a budget and the interim budget that in many ways, and even last year's budget, that in many ways the government of India should have done for the last 55, 60 years. The kind of progress.
So you're calling this the ideal budget?
In many ways, I mean, the ideal, look, there are some deficiencies in the budget, don't get me wrong. For example, for the life of me, I can't understand how for 54 crores or something that you'll get as tax, you're taxing the import of books. I mean, I just don't understand that. And there's no amount of explanation that will convince me that that was necessary. I also think, for example, given that I will be saying something good about the budget, this idea of increasing the tax on the super rich and having such a big gap between the corporate tax rate and the personal income tax rate for the richest people is, I think, the highest in the world, about 10 percentage points or 12 percentage points. So why that was done, you can't reach perfection.
Okay.
But I do think that this budget, as well as last year's budget, is really for the Indian economy, is really for 70, 80, 90% of the population. The poor have never had it so good, and it's about time.
Okay.
And when I say the poor, I'm not meaning 10, 20%. meaning 50, 60, 70%.
Okay, Mr. Swaminathan Iyer is also quite amused with your suggestion. But before I go to you, I want to bring in Chairman Hero Enterprises, Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal as well. So the farmers have never had it that good. Has business and economy also never had it that good? Because Mr. Bhalla says this is the best budget in decades. I mean, give or take, a couple of things. Give or take a couple of things. Mr. Munjal.
So, in one thing I do agree with him. This is a very big canvas budget. This is a budget which talks about the statement of intent and vision of the government as to what they would like to happen in the next 5 years and where they would like to see India go in the next 10 to 20 years. So certainly it's a big picture budget. It's very wide coverage all the way from spacecraft to MROs to rural infrastructure to urbanization to education. It's looked at a very large number of things, including talk to some of the current issues of banking and NBFCs. It's quite clear right now that over the last some 14 odd quarters, gross capital formation has been dropping. So we do need to figure out a way to get some investment and capex into the system. What was keeping us going was consumption, and consumption and demand have fallen over the last 2 quarters, and that's why we are seeing this dip in the corporate performance across India. So
but when you call
growth
it
has
a
got
big
to be the
canvas
mantra for
budget,
this nation for the next 25 to 30 years.
but when you call it a big canvas budget, Swaminathan Iyer, there is a lot of, or as I'll paraphrase what the Congress has said today, that there is a lot of talk. There are a lot of promises, but how many of them will actually be delivered? Do we know how it is going to be done?
Well, there is a short-term and a long-term thing. This is an unexciting budget which is going to do nothing to produce 8% growth in this year. I mean, you can argue what may happen in the distant future. Right now, there is nothing to boost the growth rate, which is why the stock markets crashed today. It was logical. You can argue that let us go for prudence, let us go for fiscal
So the budget
prudence.
of trillions figure that we are being told is more a pipe dream.
No,
I mean, being realistic.
GDP figure can be there. I'm merely saying that this sort of totality, a budget does not control the whole economy. But there's nothing in this budget to accelerate. We had the economic survey saying just yesterday, we have to have this high dependence on exports, productivity going. This budget is frankly an import substitution budget and not an export promotion budget. Very large number of duties increased on a very large number of items, and when you ask why, they say, why should we allow people to import this? I mean, this is the mindset of the Indira Gandhi government, if you ask me, rather than the other thing.
Panda? Now, there's 2 comparisons that have been made with your government and that of Indira Gandhi.
No.
Too unfair.
This budget is the furthest thing from a typical Indira Gandhi budget. I mean, the breathtaking ambition of 100 lakh crores to go into infrastructure is reminiscent of watershed events in world history when somebody like FDR in the US went for huge road construction to bring the nation out of economic slump. Look, in terms of cutting the corporate tax rate for most of the medium-sized companies, this is not something Indira Gandhi would have done. In terms of working on top of the steps already taken on the bankruptcy code to get back the 4 lakh crores recovery and the reduction in NPS this last year, this is not something any government was very competent at doing a little bit earlier. So I think not enough credit is being given. I agree with something that Mr. Iyer just said, that despite the breathtaking ambition of this budget, this is not something that will immediately have a result this year, because this is not a superficial budget. If you're investing in infrastructure, it will have an effect over the next 5 years. So it also is important to recognize what the budget chose not to do. It chose not to do things like pump priming to get the growth rate up to 8% and to give the impression that things were hunky-dory. Pump priming would have led to all kinds of other problems in the medium term. So the government has done very responsibly in terms of containing inflation, which I mentioned earlier, and making this commitment to huge investment is absolutely breathtaking. India has seen nothing like it ever.
Sujit Bhalla.
Yeah, this 8% growth that is Swami correctly said, and Jay also said that, look, it's not going to be achievable next year. Very unlikely. I have two observations on that. First, I think we are very much at the bottom of a business cycle. So history, in my view, will judge Nirmala Sitharaman to be a very lucky finance minister, that she came in at the bottom of the business cycle. Now, whether we get to 8 or we get to 7 over this year is, in my view, immaterial. The foundation, the fact of infrastructure, etc., the increased productivity that will bring about suggests that our long-awaited goal of potential GDP growth of 8% on a sustained basis is very much realizable over the next few years.
Mr. Iyer, you agree that they've been responsible. It would have been easy to have a flashy budget, but it's better to err on the side of caution, and that's what this government has done.
But when you consider that 90,000 crores is coming from the RBI, that is what has produced your prudence rather than an approach in general.
But that's part of prudence.
No, fine. I'm merely saying that, the prudence is not by tightening on the fiscal deficit. But to me, the Jaitley vision that India must compete with the Asian neighbors, even on tax rates. Even while we are struggling to come down to 25, in the rest of Asia, it's gone below 20. We are increasing our income tax rates at a time when theirs is not increasing. We have heard about a flight of billionaires going out to Dubai and Singapore. So, I mean, if you accelerate that flight, you are not going to get the apparent revenue boom that you are hoping for. Because frankly, people working out of Singapore and Dubai can run a business in India very easily. So, you need to worry about are you trying to compete with the Asian neighbors, or have you forgotten that was your strategic aim?
Chetan Bhagat.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the biggest thing in the budget is that number 100 lakh crores for infrastructure. People, I think, are still not understanding how big that number is, because even the NPA crisis is being solved at 70,000 crores, and that's 100 lakh crores. That is 1.7 trillion. That's in the trillions, and I think they will need to get money for it. And like I said, this was a budget which was very visionary. If you want to praise it. But it's all, like, people are asking me how much marks out of 10 you should give and all that. But I feel like it's like a student who's not given in his full answer paper. But a student saying, I'm going to study this and I'm going to do this in life and I'm going to do this in life. I'm going to become a doctor, I'm going to become a specialist, I'm going to do this, all that. Now, how do you judge that out of 10? Because I'll have to see for 3 to 4 years. So they have they're trying to make something long term. You know how corporates sometimes they don't want to do this quarterly performance. I think they don't want to do this annual dissection, because if they've thrown out a lot of numbers, this is the fiscal deficit. Of course, we can find it 2 days later, but immediately we'll be discussing
Mr. Munjal, you agree that there is a need for more specifics? Vision, yes. What about the delivery?
Yeah, so many parts of the budget, the FM said it's in the annexures or will be decided during this year. So some of the details are yet to be worked out, or at least they're not known to us. But as I said, overall the direction seems very good. The question now is going to be about execution, speed of execution, and how do you communicate to the people that some of these things will have an impact in 1 year and some in 3 to 5 years. Because this is also about communicating to the people the long-term plan and how it's getting executed in phases, which, by the way, we have not done a very good job of earlier.
Okay, so I'm going to.
And I'll tell you one more thing interesting about this budget, and maybe just because the times we live in, there's not much opposition. Where is the opposition?
Exactly, which is exactly
every TV studio is struggling to have a debate and people fight, but they're like,
which is exactly what
there
I
is
asked
no
Mr.
more
Javadekar
fight
in the beginning. That you know, there is an element of riding roughshod over people because you know they have no alternative.
Yeah,
at
I
this
mean,
point.
like Mr. Chidambaram saying, okay, it's a fraud budget or whatever, misleading budget. But that's it. I mean, that's your best. Today is his view.
It doesn't even appear on the news.
So, Chandan Mitra, people will just have to lump it.
Yeah, I mean, what option do they have? I mean, if you're going to put a 1 rupee cess on petrol and diesel, doesn't mean that you're going to stop buying petrol and diesel or traveling by car and paying toll tax and then be told that we've done a great job, we have painted a picture for the future. What can we do except to just swallow the bitter pill every time it comes. But then the thing is that we expected much more from this government. We expected something very concrete. We expected steps to be taken to increase consumption, to raise demand, to set a kind of give a kickstart to manufacturing industry. With, as panelists were saying, people are not investing in India.
Okay,
Indians
Jai
are
Panda, I'll
going
give you the
abroad to
final
invest
word.
there.
Everyone
Why?
has given a
Because
thumbs
we
up
have
to
made
your vision.
investment, unattractive.
But that only is going to put you on test because the execution is not going to be easy breezy.
That's a very valid question, and I will reiterate something. This is a government that has been building rural concrete roads at a speed of 135 kilometers every day, significantly higher than any earlier statistic that we have. And I've already talked about the highways, where 1 out of every 5 kilometers of the highways we have in India were built only in the last 4 years.
I'm sorry, just because he has some rhetoric numbers, we can't let him really go like this.
Okay.
No, it's in the economic survey yesterday.
Okay, I'm unfortunately completely. Okay, I'm unfortunately completely out of time. But we'll carry on with this debate through the rest of the evening as well. For the time being, I will have to thank all gentlemen. I just realized there's no lady on the panel, but thank you very much, all gentlemen, for having joined us on India Upfront. Thanks, viewers, for tuning in.